you, no. Reject me, I reject harder. I don't need you, no. Act unbothered, give me that Oscar. If I can't get love,
Hey guys, this is HOPEsaidit back at it again. I am back on track with a video on Friday, okay? And then we'll go ahead and do the post on Tuesday, video on Friday. I was a little off lately because work got crazy, but no excuse, okay? 2019 is about consistency, and that's what I'm gonna do. So this week, the post was about jobs. I said jobs on jobs. Ooh, say that 3 times fast. I was thinking back and I was like, all of my jobs, except for my current one. My current one is normal, awesome, I love it, okay? But thinking back, I was like, wow, like I had to kiss a couple frogs to get to this one. Like, seriously. I'm so grateful for my job now because I had a lot of jobs where it just was either a crazy work environment, a crazy boss, crazy clientele. You know, it's just so odd that everything is working so perfectly now. But I'll explain all that, okay? Talk about crazy jobs. And it was so much that, so many jobs that I had that I was typing and I got to like mid-college and I was like, oh my gosh, I still have like 8 more jobs or 6 or something ridiculous to explain before I get to this point. I mean, I don't think people have that many jobs, but I did. I mean, people thought I was Jamaican because of all my jobs. Is that offensive to Jamaicans? I mean, I get it, you know, I just did my post about Africa's hot, so I am sensitive to that issue, okay? Caribbeans, if you do not like the fact that people think y'all work 5 million jobs, let me know. I'll kill that stereotype, okay? But anyways, so my first job was at the church. My sister was working there just to be the child care provider. Those events where it says child care is provided, my sister was watching your kids, okay? So she was 14, she did that. She was awesome as always. And because she was awesome, they gave me a try at the age of 12. So I was probably the youngest person working in that daycare center. So we were working at the daycare center. It's so funny because it was old school. Like you'd actually have to punch your yellow time card in and it's like, for time and time. And I thought I was so cool. I was like, oh yeah, let me clock out real quick because I had a real job. So then we did that for a while, but we kind of broke off into our own business because then you had parents picking up their kids from the church saying, hey, do you guys babysit and this and that and this? So Grace started babysitting at people's homes. That's how her babysitting kind of started. I would go and tag along. So it became a thing. Like they'd pay her. I didn't really ask for money until maybe when I was really into it. Then she'd give me like, you know, $10 out of her 30 or whatever the case may be. Our rates were dirt cheap, okay? That's not even like a smart practice. That's not like a hustler. We were getting hustled, okay? Like, and that was because we were trying to raise our rates so many times. So many times we're like, dude, we don't get paid enough for this. But my mom would be like, oh no, your treasure is in heaven. And I'm like, okay, Lord, like bring a down payment of this treasure down on earth at least, right? My goodness, I'm talking about, I mean, even back then it was like $10 an hour for a babysitter. We would be watching like 4 kids for 4 hours and get like $30 to $40, period, total. And I'm like, what? That's highway robbery. So obviously business was booming because we're so butt cheap. But either way, once my sister turned 15, you know, she could kind of get a real job now. So babysitting was not her thing anymore. So that left me kind of fending for myself. And that was hard because I was like, well, will they still want me? I'm 12. I mean, even now I have kids. I'm not having a 12-year-old watch my kid, but thank God they did anyways. And you know, the first time it happened, it was so funny because Grace, if you know anything about Grace, she'll just stop. If she's done with you, she's done with you. So she was done with babysitting over at the end. It was taking up her time and all her weekends and everything. But for me, I was like, listen, I'm getting money. As little as it is, I don't care. The person called us, one of our clients called us and said, hey, you know, can you guys do it this Friday? And I said, oh, well, Grace doesn't babysit anymore. And she was like, oh, okay, wow. And you could just tell she was shocked. So I was like, you know what, let me test the waters and see if you want me. Like, I know it used to be a 12 and 15-year-old, but what if you just had a 12-year-old? Do you trust me? So I was just like, hey, but I could do it. I'm 12 and a half, try to beef it up a little. I was absolutely just 12. I probably like almost just turned 12. But either way, I was like, I'll do it. I could do it. And then it took off. They were deliberating and you could hear like, listen, you want your date night, hire me. And that's exactly what they did. They hired me. I stayed on and business was booming, booming, booming. I mean, I had no break. And that was a good thing. Like, I like to work, at least at the time. Right now I want my breaks and my sleep. The problem for me at that job happened when, first of all, it was a lot of homeschool kids. So they're kind of weird anyway, no offense. But you got people who only know their siblings. They're odd kids. And I had to deal with that. At least 4 of them at a time at first. Like, they would be a family of 4 or a family of 6 with 4 children. Yeah. But then they started hustling me. Even more. I was getting paid like $40 a night, which is ridiculous if you have 4 kids. But then they started saying, oh, well, let's form a small group. So the parents would have a small group, right? And then I would watch the kids upstairs. There are 8 to 13. I think one time I had like 14 kids. I'm still getting $40 for the night. 13 kids, I'm getting $40. So that had to stop. I said, Lord, I know my treasure's in heaven, but this ain't it. Okay, this is not it. So right when I turned 16, I went ahead and chucked up the deuces. Goodbye. Okay, y'all go ahead and try to swindle someone else. And I promise you no one else took that rate. And then at 16, I started working at Chuck E. Cheese's. And that sounded so magical. It's so funny because it's almost like womp womp when you actually worked, at least at my location. I searched online, found a Chuck E. Cheese job, walked in there way too dressed up. Mind you, this is my first job in corporate America, right? I was like, oh my, I got to dress up. Do I need a suit? Do I need a business suit? I'm 16, really? And I'm sure they're just happy I had pants on. So I was way too dressed up. My sister dropped me off at the interview. I was, oh, I love kids and this and that and this and that. I don't even know if she was checking for me like that. But by the time I left that interview, she was like, when can you start? You have the job. So I started working at Chuck E. Cheese's. And even thinking about it, when I walked in, I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I work at Chuck E. Cheese's. It's like the happiest place on earth. No, that's Disney World. So I don't know what Chuck E. Cheese's is. We were making magic though. And I still remember our call. We're making magic here at Chuck E. Cheese's, and I'm not going to tell you. My name is Hope. How can I help you? Here's the problem with that job. It would have been good, I think, but my location was not hot. Now, mind you, we were making money. Like we were the highest grossing store in the area, but we were so hood, like so hood. And it wasn't even in a hood area. It's just that we were in a place where the hood came because it was like their closest location. So we kind of had hood cashiers and this and that. I don't have a problem with hood people. I don't care. I'm hood sometimes, whatever. I don't care. But it was just the hood mentality that we had. We got robbed multiple times at this location. Chuck E. Cheese's. Now, you're getting robbed at Chuck E. Cheese's. We got robbed at Chuck E. Cheese's. Heard many stories of robberies. I experienced one. I'm thankful actually because the robberies I experienced weren't scary necessarily. It was almost funny, because one time I saw this guy. He came in like right before we closed, right? And so he came in and I said, sir, the kitchen is closed. And he said, that's not a problem. And we're putting our stuff up and he's like under his shirt and like sticks something. So he's, through his shirt, you can see there's like a stick or something. And he's just like, well, give me all the money in the till. And I was like, what? And he was like, man, you hurt me. Give me all the money in the till. And it's supposed to be like some scary stars, movie moment. And I just look at it and I was like, I'm sorry, sir. Is that a knife? You think you're sticking me up with a knife, So, and then he didn't know what to do. He was just like, oh, and I was like, sir, like, what are you gonna do? Chunk it at me? Like, sir, come correct. Now, thinking back, I'm like, what am I hoping that he had a gun next time? But either way, it was just funny because, like, seriously, I was like, sir, a knife? You're not getting any money here. Like, and then you're not wearing a mask. Sir, I see every little tattoo and scar on your face. I can identify you. So he got scared and ran. We'd have people who try to make it rain, on Chucky sometimes. We had parents pop trunk in the parking lot. When I tell you, the most fierce people at Chuck E. Cheese are not the kids. The kids don't care. The parents care for the kids, okay? They're like, oh no, you need to get the biggest prize. That kid is good with this blow pop. Are you serious? But parents pop trunk in the parking lot, and the owner was like Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob, for real. Like, he was so frugal, it was ridiculous. He would teach us to take the unused napkins from the floor or table or something and put it right back in the dispenser. Any empty cups on the table that the customer didn't use, we put it right back into the cup dispenser as well. Goodness, like, it was just save. And what we found out later was it's all part of his bonus. Like, I don't know what kind of savings metric is factored into his bonus, but he was getting paid for being frugal. And here we are just looking trifling. And I also learned that just because I was hired to be a cashier doesn't mean that I'm actually a cashier. Like, that's what I would do sometimes. But on the downtimes, I was the hostess. I was the door greeter. I was the game technician. I was Chucky. And mind you, I'm a team player. I don't care. Like, I'm not too good to do XYZ. But Chucky for our store meant I had to get into musty, crusty Chucky. And it's musty and crusty because you think if 7-8 people a day are wearing this costume, you take time to dry clean it. No dry cleaning. We would have a bottle of Febreze that Mr. Krabs had, and we just spray it down. So it's like funk on funk on funk, like what are you doing? And you have to be Chucky. And I'm like, dude, what? You're walking around, you're nasty, it's just, and then kids are kicking you. Like, it was an interesting experience, to say the least. I was promoted to Team 2, and that just was like in between a regular worker and a leadership. And let me tell you, it didn't go too well with the crew. Okay, they thought I was all that. What? So they're like, oh, she thinks she all that because she got a blue shirt. Girl, this is Chuck E. Cheese's. I'm trying to graduate high school. Like, I have aspirations. Okay, be that way. It's fine. Looking back, it's all funny, but I mean, those were some crazy times. Right when I went to college, I didn't take a semester off of work, and I was like, there are jobs to be had, and I am having them. So the first one, I think I just saw the pay. To be honest, I just saw the pay, maybe about $7 an hour, something like that. I don't know. I was getting minimum wage at Chuck E. Cheese's, so that was a step up. And I applied. It was something about alumni relations, something. I don't know. I didn't care. So I go to the interview, talk a good game, but I still didn't really know what the job entailed. I was just like, yeah, sure, I'm great at customer service and I can do this and that, you pick me. And they did. They did. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I came first day of work. They were talking about, we're calling alumni, here's a script, yada, yada, yada. So I'm looking, I'm like, oh, okay. Hello, this blah from blah, blah, blah. That's normal. Then I get to the bottom of the script, I'm like, oh, we're asking for money. Oh gosh. And guys, I do not like fundraising at all. That is like horrible to me. I'm not a fundraiser. Okay. So I read the script and I was like, I'm going to be the person that I hang up on. Really? Like, is this my life? Living a lie? So we're calling people. I'm getting hung up on left and right. That school never did anything for me. So why am I doing anything for it? I'm like, good question, ma'am. So I was on paragraph 2. Ma'am, would you also like to, how are you supposed to counter that? And then I also learned from that job that social workers are like the worst paid humans in history. Hug a social worker, y'all, because actually when I was in school, that was when Hurricane Katrina had hit. So that's really when they were working. They're on their, grind. And No, they were not trying to give, which I wouldn't either. I'm not saying that. But that's when they kind of let me know, hey, I have this big debt from college. I'm making maybe 30 a year, you know, like just, well, I'm sorry. And then you have to ask them for money. You always have to ask them for money when you know that they're going to say no. When you know it's like they're pouring their heart out to you. I lost everything in a fire, blah, blah, blah. And then you have to be like, so can you give $10? Any amount can help. And you know, it just was horrible. I just did not like that. I lasted maybe three or 4 months. It wasn't long, but you know, I'm not going to leave one job without going to another. Okay. So that's exactly what I did. I had applied for another job, and my other job was to be I was a security basically at the university. So I went from calling alumni to being the person you call at night to, like, you know, escort you on the golf cart to and from locations. I was like the only female on duty. It was, I had duty, but anyways, but it was 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. So a lot of people were like, oh, aren't you scared? Well, now I am, thanks. You know, it was cool. I liked the hours. I took morning classes, would go home, eat, chill, take a nap, whatever, and then go to work. I think the only weird thing about that job, that was the people. Like, you had some odd people that come out at night, boy, especially on a college campus. I'm up there taking people, and I'm like, I think you're homeless. You don't go here, you know. Oh my goodness. Like, I had a code for the police officers. I'd be like, you know, if I get on the walkie-talkie and say I'm going to the bridge, that means that they need to meet me at the bridge and like help me get rid of one of the passengers. Cause I had some really stalkerific people to where they're like, oh, I got on across the street, but it wasn't you. So I went on. I'm like, oh gosh, this is not good. And you're like driving alone with these people, you know, and they could be like, oh, I'm parked all the way out in lot 51, and that was way out nowhere land. And I was like, oh, I guess this isn't safe. So I try to, you know, either try to get on the phone, get a walkie-talkie, let people know that I'm still connected in some way, so you can't just snatch me up. If I say, you know, I'm about to cross the bridge or something about bridge, the officer would come and say, you know, hey, is everything okay here? And I'd say, oh no, this gentleman was just getting off. And we just wait for him to leave. And that's kind of how I cope with that. But I mean, that's really when I work with police officers, and I was like, oh, okay, they can be cool. They're pretty cool. So I worked at the carts for a while, actually. I liked the cart job a lot. It paid well. The hours were okay. I guess that kind of compensated for the pay. But really, I had to stop because I started working another job at the same time, and it paid more. You know, apparently, you know, I'm up there just going for the money. It paid more, and it was a 4 to 9 o'clock job, and that overlapped for the first 2 hours of the cart job. So I was coming to work like 2 hours late or working half shifts, and I knew it couldn't last. Like, after the semester ended, me and the supervisor kind of agreed, like, you know, this isn't working out towards the end, and that's fine. I had a better job. My next job was a flood researcher, and when I tell you, I had to make this blog into 2 parts. This week's blog, I was just like, oh, jobs on jobs on jobs. Let me explain my jobs, right? Oh my gosh, like, I was writing, and I was like, this is a lot. I was a babysitter. I went to work at Chuck E. Cheese's. And then I had the alumni caller job, and then the cart job, and then this flood researcher job. Yes, I was a flood researcher, like FEMA certified flood researcher. And then, gosh, what after that? Six Flags, 24-Hour Fitness, eHome Child. There's so much I can tell you. And I was like, well, let me break this up into a couple parts, because after the cart job is when things got popping, and I was working like 3 jobs at a time. And I work at Six Flags as valet. You know, what did that mean? And that's the only job that I walked away from, and I didn't care that my check was there. I was like, I hate this so much that you can keep the check, and I would have got paid quite a bit for that. But either way, that's another story for another day. I'll continue the job story at another time. I know that next week I wanted to update on my hair, because I always try to get it, like, you know, a hair video in there. and it's talking about oils, the different oils that I use, and the ones like the do's and don'ts of oils for hair. Okay, because everybody just thinks if you say oil, ooh, nourishment, and your hair's gonna get. No. Okay, so that's next week. This is like the first time I know what I'm doing next week, so I'm very happy about that. I'm getting my life together, y'all. Go to HOPEsaidit.com, read the latest blogs, and read my past blogs, because I have one every week. And then follow me at HOPEsaidit, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I am here for you. Okay? Bye. Is he sleepy? That's a wrap.
I need more than I will admit. Now I always said I don't need you. Always thought it was true. I don't need nobody. Damn, maybe I do.